Hello everyone and welcome to Video Games and Coffee. I'm your host Daniel, and this episode is a special bonus episode that is outside of the regular format that you're used to. I actually got to know 3 other podcasters in the last 4 to 5 weeks, and they're wonderful people, a lot of fun to talk to, so we thought it would be a lot of fun to do a recording together where we talk about ourselves a bit, talk about how and why we got into podcasting and everything that we do that goes into it. And it was just a really fun discussion to have with them, a very long discussion. This is actually part 1 of 3, and we will all be releasing it on our own individual shows. So if you're following any one of us, you'll be able to listen to the same episodes. So I hope you enjoy it, and here we go. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Daniel.
I'm Claire.
I'm Kelvin.
I'm Rob.
And today is a very special episode of Video Games and Coffee,
The Days Gone podcast,
And Project Set Gaming podcast.
We are 4 podcasters who recently got to know each other in the last several weeks and thought it'd be fun to collaborate and record an episode where we talk about who we are, how we got into podcasting, why we do it, and its ups and downs.
And after all of that is put on the table, you just know we're going to dive into the same content you all enjoy when you tune into our shows. So thank you for listening in. We're going to have a great time, and we hope you enjoy it with us.
Okay, so this is going to be the most unscripted, most casual conversation you're ever going to listen to. So there's going to be you're going to hear a lot of sipping of coffee, beer, I'm sure.
A lot of babies in the background.
And a lot of clearing of throats and all that. So we actually have a document we put together, a bunch of questions that we're just going to kind of go around the table here and start answering. So who wants to start it off?
Why don't you start it off by asking the first question?
Okay.
Daniel.
All right. So since I'm starting it off, I'm gonna pick who answers first. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Deal.
Let's do Rob. Let's go with Rob, man.
Oh.
When did you start recording your first episode, and how long have you been podcasting?
So me and Kelvin recorded our first episode, I want to say almost a year from now, or a year prior from today. We started the podcast around, I want to say January of 2021, right? And from there, we're on episode 47, was our latest episode. So once we reach episode 52, that'll be our full year of the podcast. We haven't missed a single episode yet. So every single week we're putting content out, which is kind of crazy.
And you're not sick of each other yet?
Oh yeah, all the time. I'm 100% sick of them. You guys got to understand. Like we've known each other since we were like 8 years old, right? And this is kind of like something that we've been wanting to do for quite some time. So it's kind of surreal for us to actually start doing this. We've talked about this for months at this point, right? Like prior to doing this, and we finally got to do it. So here we are, you know.
All right, Daniel, back at you.
Oh,
when did you start recording your first episode, and how long you been doing it for?
Jesus, it's only been a couple of months. I've only put out my 7th episode just last night. So my first episode was, Jesus, I'm ashamed to admit, August. Maybe September, something like that. I have no idea. Maybe it's October. That's how long it's been. It's only been a short amount of time, but it seems like it's been forever because of all the preparation and everything that goes along with it.
Sure.
And here's a little spoiler, little inside thing. So when I first started it, I didn't tell anyone. My wife usually goes out with her friends a couple of nights a week, and after my son goes to bed is when I snuck down here, and I had put all my equipment together, and I wrote everything out, and I started secretly recording, because if it crashed and burned, nobody knew about it, right? So it's like the whole thing, right? If a tree falls in the middle of the woods, nobody's around, does it make a noise?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody knew, and then Claire and I started talking, and then she asked me if I wanted to be a guest on her show. Now I've been going 2 or 3 weeks now, completely in secret, lying about not lying, white lying, like, oh, I'm just gonna go down and hang out, and I just would secretly get on here and record something. But then Claire asked me to be a guest on her show, and at that point, I only had, I think, 2 or 3 episodes out, and I got excited. I'm like, oh my God, who wants me on their show? I'm a nobody, but now I have a commitment. There is a date and a time when I have to do it now. So I had to tell my wife, because you're going to have to put our son to bed. I have to make sure it's completely quiet in the house. So that's when everything kind of came out. So that's
what
how
did she say though?
So you're blaming me, basically.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Basically.
Just a little bit. And so what she said, at first I got the look like,
are you serious? Right?
Well, very briefly that I get I'm a little hurt. You didn't, you thought I wasn't going to support you. That kind, how that whole thing goes.
That whole thing goes. Mm-hmm.
That quickly went away. Then she's like, no, that's really cool. And she said she's always wanted to do a podcast, that kind of stuff. But I don't think I don't know. She likes true crime stuff. So
she doesn't want to do a podcast about video games and coffee.
Yeah, she's not going to. And right. So when I told her it wasn't nearly the big event that I thought it was going to be. So that kind of gave me the green light. So I was actually able to write and record and edit more freely without being in secret, because there would be a week where she doesn't go out with her friends. And I'm like, shit, what am I going to do now? So now it's all good.
Oh, I had kind of awesome. The opposite experience when I put my podcast together. This was back in August. I've only been doing this one since August. I've done a couple podcasts before, but it was a few years ago. But I created my little intro that I have like re-recorded with like some cool music and my little intro that goes over it. And I brought my husband into my office. I'm like, come here. I give him some headphones, put these on. And he puts them on, and he hasn't played the game. So he doesn't recognize the music is from the game. So he's like listening, and he's like, what? Like, what is this? What am I listening to? Because there's like, I don't know, 10 seconds or so of like the music building up. And then it's like, hi, and welcome to the Days Gone podcast. And he was just like,
nice.
You're doing
That's
a podcast? Sick. And he looked at me like, why? Like, he was sort of supportive. Like, he loves that I was doing it, but I don't think he got, it's so niche. My podcast is the most niche podcast, I think. And he was just like, what do you have to say? It's just one video game. How do you make an entire podcast out of one video game? And I was like, you'll see.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted,
much.
Exactly.
18, 19 episodes in. I've got episodes lined up through the end of the year, halfway into January, and so many more ideas to come. But I think we get to that later.
So yeah, I guess we'll stick on that point. There is what made you start your podcast? Obviously, because you have this love for this game. But what was a point you hit and you were like, I want to make a podcast about this?
Actually, I have a really cool story about that. I got to wind back the clock back in time to 2015 when I started my first podcast. I hate the way I sound. I hate my voice. I know everyone's like, oh, my accent is great and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I really hate my own voice. And I was going through this thing at the time where I was trying to do all of the things that I didn't have permission to do. You're not allowed to do that, or you're not good enough to do that, or all those things that little voice in your head tells you, like, oh, you can't do a podcast because you don't have the right voice for it. And right. I was going through this, what I called Operation Comfort Zone, which was basically pushing myself out of my comfort zone and saying to that voice, hey, fuck you, I can do these things. And I'm going to do these things. And so I started doing a podcast with a friend of mine. It was just like chit chat, just a talk podcast. We talk about our lives, living in LA, being writers. And it was just so like weird and varied, and we got wildly off topic every episode, but it was a lot of fun. So I did that for about almost a year. And then, we did like maybe 40 episodes, and then, life gets in the way. She got kind of busy and we moved on. And and then earlier this year, I did a podcast with a friend of mine, which never actually we recorded a bunch of episodes, but we never actually released it. Not my fault. Oh. He was kind of figuring out the format and wanted to re-engineer it. So we're going to revisit it, but we're going to redo what we did before.
And that was earlier this year?
That was earlier this year.
Oh.
Yeah, early 2021.
Wow.
Okay.
And that was just sitting in my head of like, hey, I kind of enjoy doing I hate the sound of my own voice, but I kind of like using it. I don't know, like sharing my opinions. And I find it still a challenge to sort of force myself to be articulate, you know, to force myself to listen to the patterns of my own speech, all those weird pauses and those ums and those yeahs and ands and buts and all of that, and try to better myself through annoying myself with my own voice.
I'm the same way though. Sorry to interrupt, but
No, go
I
ahead.
have a real tough time getting on camera and just kind of like voicing my opinion, especially like, you know, like you said, doing the ums and the what ifs and all that stuff like that. That's really hard for me not to do. So it's a learning process for sure, right?
Yeah.
And it's difficult. I mean, you learn like from the beginning and you start getting better as you go. Like I find myself learning every day, right? Like every week, every time we record, and it's just a really great experience just trying to get out of your comfort zone, like you said, and doing stuff that you would never think you would do. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question:
So,
do you think Morgan Freeman hates the sound of his own voice?
No,
I don't
No,
think
he
that's
loves it.
possible.
There's no way, bro. There's no way.
But that's
No.
what I'm saying. Like you two have really great voices, I think, in my opinion. So someone like that, do you think they actually think the same way in the sense of
I
like they
think
actually don't like?
he probably hates that everyone likes the sound of his voice. Like there's gonna be some part of him that's like a little bit self-conscious. Maybe
I
he
want
does
Morgan
the Morgan
Freeman-
Freeman voice, you know, like he puts it on a little bit.
Like he makes it a little deeper whenever he
yeah, a
has to
little bit
speak.
more
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, like turn it up to 11.
Right.
I want Morgan Freeman to read me a bedtime story every night.
Oh,
That's how awesome his
Oh.
voice is. Now, Claire, when I told my wife that I was going to, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm a guest. Like I have 2 episodes
I've
out,
made it.
and somebody wants to talk to me." And I'm like, "Seriously, you're gonna love this." She sounds like Laura Croft. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
So you just did an episode on Tomb Raider, and I
Oh,
just
hell
noticed
yes, I did.
you said Laura Croft just now.
Laura. Sorry.
Okay.
Laura,
I was worried for a second that you said Laura, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to just rage quit this podcast right now.
Us Americans, we're just like we're so, you know, I'm so ignorant. I'm so used to, you know, Laura. It's
I'm just giving you shit.
It's
It's
Laura. Laura. There's no
Yeah.
U in it. It's Lara. Yeah, and I think I riddled my episode with Laura Croft, but I'm just gonna chalk it up to its dialect. That's all it is.
Yes.
So if I can ask real quick, how did you guys meet? Because I don't think I know the story.
I came across Claire's page, and I think, and I don't remember who sent who the follow first, but I reached out to her first because I was like, this is because Days Gone is one of my favorite games, and I was like, she's doing an entire episode just on Days Gone, and now that's a superhuman feat right there because I think of some of the things that I love most in the world. I couldn't talk for more than probably an hour about it because I'm not that articulate. I'm not that creative.
100%. Yeah.
That's I mean, you guys have different content every episode, but to do the same, not topic, but the same kind of subject matter, that takes a lot of creativity. And I was like, man, good for you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
right.
Because I listened to your episodes and they're all different. They all cover something. And that's the thing about it's a big game. So there's a lot to talk about. And then the fact that she brings on guests and some of the actors that were on the game, I thought that was incredible. So that's how we got to talking.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess I'll segue into that because I've been wanting to ask Claire for the longest. I know you just said that you have so much content going into January, but like, how do you continue the content that you're making? Because like you said, it's such a niche, like very niche
it's one game.
podcast, right? It's one game. And that like, how do you do it?
I guess I just have a lot of opinions about it. I mean, part of it is it's really come alive since I started having guests on the show. So episode 7 was my first guest. I'm now on episode 19 was the last one I recorded, and I've had a guest on every single one of those episodes. So I've had a couple of the actors on, and then I had Daniel on and some other people who do kind of fan stuff and just people who love the game. And then I've had I do these like deep dives into the characters. And I have a couple people who've become sort of regulars on the show that I've just met through the community, just through Instagram, through Reddit. I also moderate the subreddit, so I'm on there all the time, and I get to know the people who actually love the game as much as I do and have as much to say about it as I do. So I just like grab those people. I'm like, come on my podcast and talk to me. And yeah, just find different angles. There are so many characters in the game, and so many parts of the world, and so many like unanswered questions and little clues that are peppered throughout. So there's just always something to talk about.
That's
well,
awesome.
and she chose this one guy, Josh Bryant, on he's a big into heavy like motorcycles and everything. And I mean, I have a motorcycle, I love motorcycles, but I'm not into that culture, that world, because I don't know anybody else that rides motorcycles. I just get on it and I ride. And her guest is really big into motorcycles, and he's into that lifestyle and the motorcycle being such a big part of the game and what appeals to a lot of motorcyclists. So it was interesting having someone who's into that lifestyle also talk about the game, which I thought that was a really cool point of view.
Yeah. He actually reached out to me and said,
Oh, really?
will you do an episode on the bike? Because I'm really into bikes and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the bikes. And I'm like,
That's so cool.
I don't know anything. I don't ride a bike. My husband does, but like, I don't really know anything about bike culture or any other kind of bikes. So I emailed him back and I was like, well, do you want to come on the podcast and talk about bikes? And I had to convince him a little bit because he was like, I've never done that before. I'm not a professional or anything. I don't have any authority to speak on bikes. I'm like, well, that you love the game and you love bikes. Let's just talk. Like it's just a
Sounds like a
conversation.
perfect match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You it sounded like you're thinking outside. You kind of have to think outside the box when covering something like that. So
Yeah.
you kind of took something that links to something else, and here you are, and you're talking. It's relating to Days Gone. It doesn't necessarily about Days Gone, but it's. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
You should try to get somebody actually that loves the game that's also in a hardcore motorcycle club to see how their personalities and what they say in the game, if it pertains to real life as well.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. If you know anyone.
You got
I
to
know.
find somebody from an actor from Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
Who
Yes.
plays,
Oh my
who
gosh.
played Days
Yeah.
Gone and how it they relate to each other. That would be cool.
Or have them play Days Gone and just kind of see their reaction and see
Yeah.
what they think about it, you know?
Yeah.
So Daniel, same question to you. I mean, I guess we can kind of start off too. Like, so we talked a lot about Claire's podcast, right? How she's kind of specifically into Days Gone, right?
Mhm.
Daniel, you are a little bit more open as far as you talk about a lot of single player games, right? More single player focused games, but there are a variety of single player games, right? Can you talk a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, I always knew that it was going to be something different from episode to episode because, I mean, I've listened to a lot of podcasts or you know watched YouTube videos where they just go on and on about, and eventually it's just like, okay, I get it, and you start repeating yourself, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So I always knew it was going to be one game per episode. I'd give my opinion on it, but not everybody either agrees or really cares. So that's why I kind of give like an overview, an introduction to the game. So I don't like to spoil it. It's not a whole blow by blow and, you know, where you sit down and join me for the next 24 and a half hours while I, you know, play through it and explain everything. That's not the case. So I just like, and I mentioned this on when I talked to Claire, it's playing a game is like escapism, man. The world's cruel, ugly, and stressful place. So I get into a game, I really enjoy it and how it makes me feel. I like to talk about it. And I do get people, you know, they'll say, hey, I agree, or I wasn't really much into the game. Kind of like you guys alluded to. So we'll talk about that later with a certain game.
Yep.
So we'll get into that. But, you know, I like hearing that point of view because there are certain games out there that I can't stand, but I also can't say it's a bad game.
Right.
So that's why it was suggested that I should go over games that I don't like. And my podcast is not about bashing anybody. If I don't enjoy, unless it's a completely neglected game riddled with bugs that wasn't taken care of by the developer, it's not necessarily a bad game. It just wasn't for me. I think you and I talked about that too. It's just like sports games, you know, Madden or whatever. Mm-hmm. Great games, very well done. Totally not for me because I don't know shit about sports at all. it's embarrassing. I have to have other people, my brother, my wife, my father-in-law, fill in the sports stuff for me because I'm like,
bro, I'm right there with you. I have no fucking clue. I can talk about boxing because I'm a like I wouldn't say a huge fan of boxing, but like I like boxing. I like baseball. That's as far as I go. That's it.
And I've actually it's ironic that I'm doing a podcast to connect with people on video games, but the things I like most in the world, I tend to not like to talk about. Like I'm in IT. I hate talking to other IT people because it's same thing with like cars. I love cars. Don't like talking to people about cars. It's constantly a pissing contest, as they say.
Right. Like, I know more than you, and this is better and that better. Yeah.
I pretend I don't know shit about it. So this way it's easier because if you're listening to my podcast, you're seeking me out to listen to it and hopefully connect, but it's not, you don't necessarily feel like you want to be combative with me about something. So
I actually invite people to email me with like counter arguments and like start fighting, mostly because I like the villain in the story. I talk about it a lot. I like him because he's because he's a really good character. But I know a lot of people really hate Schizo, and like deservedly so. Not just, but I know you guys are sort of playing the game, but like not to spoil it too much. But yeah, he's a douche bro.
Well, I've listened to a few episodes of your podcast, so I'm semi-spoiled, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I still don't know who these people are because I can't put a face to them yet or anything like that. So I'm like, it's okay. But Daniel, with your podcast, what I appreciate about it from what I listened so far is that you don't necessarily give it's not an impression or a review of it. It's more of an overview to this game. You provide a good entry point. You paint like this palette for the game that allows a person who never played it before to like go into it with an open mind versus being like, I hate this part and this part sucked and this game is this and that. It's more of painting that picture for that person. And I feel like a lot of people don't really do that. I feel like people say, I hated this part and this part was this and yada, yada, and
this is why you should hate it too kind of deal.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But you give people almost like you don't talk negatively about the game, which is, I think it's hard to do sometimes when you don't like a game. It's hard to just not bash it because you personally don't like it, And
you saying that, I totally appreciate it because that's my goal for the podcast. So you saying that completely unprompted it makes me feel good. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It's nice walking into and there's not going to be an opinion. It's you wake up for your morning coffee, you get in there and you're taking a drive down. You're like, okay, what game is he talking about today? What game can I possibly get into based on what Daniel's saying? So I think,
yeah. Well, on top of that, the audio cues that you give too are very specific and very important to that specific part of the game. And I think, like, when I was, I think I was driving and I was hearing your Sacrifice. What's the game? Sacrifice.
Hellblade.
Hellblade. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. So I'm listening and I'm just like envisioning all that stuff because I played the game and I'm just envisioning all those parts in my head and I'm just like, it's so fascinating to like drive and like listen to that specific part of the game that I've already played and just kind of play it in my head again,
Yeah, it's totally a what to expect because I mean, let's face it, games are expensive, man. A new game comes out, you're paying minimum $60 for the base game. Another $20, $30 for whatever all that shit now. Season Pass 1, 2, 3, Ultimate Edition, this, that, the other. So, I mean, shit, if you want to buy the full Forza thing, you're dropping like $100 on it, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's like, shit. So should I do it or should I not? So, well, let me listen to this guy, see what he has to say, and hopefully I give a good decision-making push on whether to even try it or wait till it goes on sale.
I'm telling you guys, Xbox Game Pass is the way to go.
I agree.
He says that every single episode. He's not wrong. He's not wrong, but he just says that every single episode.
I'm telling you guys, just get Days Gone and then you don't need to play any other video games.
It's like I also agree with that. It's like I can't disagree with that, but I mean,
yeah. I have a question for all of you guys. So Daniel, Rob, Kelvin, I want to know, how did you guys meet? And also Rob and Kelvin, how do you describe your podcast and like what your niche is?
Jesus, let me go through the Instagram messages here. Just it's been a while,
if you and Kelvin, I think you should speak to about that as far as because you're the one that kind of really did all this whole thing with Daniel. I was kind of just like reading the messages like a creep. So,
well,
yeah, Instagram. That's why.
So wait, the question was for Daniel first, right?
No, for all of you. Like, how did you three meet? And then Rob and Kelvin, how would you define your podcast? Like, what your niche is?
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember how I met Daniel. I don't know if you were suggested, like if you were one of like suggested, like in the algorithm on Instagram, definitely on Instagram for sure. But I don't know.
I think you reached out to me. It's either a comment or a message.
I got it. Yes.
But I think I sent you the follow because I think I searched for video game podcast hashtag or something like that because I wanted to try to meet other people in the community. And I ended up liking the way you guys did that because YouTube is something I've always wanted to venture into, but I haven't really yet. So I think that's how it happened.
Yeah, I remember now. So I don't know how I got to this point, but I saw a video that you posted. I think it was like a reel or something. And you were talking about how we were just talking about this, how it's so hard to be on the mic and not stutter like I'm doing right now or saying, or all that stuff. And I related with that so much. And I thought to myself, oh man, this guy is so genuine.
That's right.
Right? Remember that?
That's
and I'm
right.
like, damn, he's like literally doing exactly what we're doing right now. And I'm dealing with that same emotions, those same like nerves as I'm recording. So that's why we just started talking from there.
That's right. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And
then not knowing that our back and forth was being creeped on by Rob.
I
wasn't like staring at the messages. I just was like going through them. Oh, okay, they're having a conversation. I'll leave it at that.
At a certain point, it becomes awkward if you say, "Oh, hey, I'm in this chat too."
Well, I did tell. I kind of did a side text. I'm like, Rob, you kind of should introduce yourself at some point. I mean, you're just fucking like watching other conversations.
Well, that's what I didn't want to be like. Hey, by the way, I'm Rob. I'm going to break your conversation. I was like, no, just keep
combo
your
breaker.
Just do your thing.
This is like old school landline talking where you hear like somebody picked up the other line upstairs. Like I know somebody.
Hello, someone there?
Yeah.
So I think the whole reason why we started this whole podcast right now, this special episode, right, is because we all each have a different way of enjoying or portraying what we love, right, which is video games. Claire, you have a specific niche. Daniel, you talk about specific games for each episode, right? You have one specific game that you talk about every episode. Project Set Gaming, Rob and I, we kind of talk about the whole gaming news and the gaming industry as a whole. So we have decent conversations as far as like some of the things that happen throughout the week, but then we have a specific like discussion piece that we talk about that we really kind of deep dive in, and we just kind of talk about our thoughts and our agreements and disagreements, and we just kind of roll with the punches from there, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I really wanted to have this chat because all of our shows are completely different in format.
For sure.
You know, it's it's pretty diverse here. But did you guys ever do a podcast before? Is this your first time?
First one ever.
First one.
We don't know what we're doing.
No, you guys are killing it. This is my third attempt. Like Claire, this is my third attempt at one, and you guys are totally killing it.
You go, Kelvin.
Go ahead, Rob.
Oh.
Well, I was just gonna say, like Rob said, we started in January, and we're like, dude, we should start a podcast. Like, we talk about games every day. Like I said, we knew each other since we were 8 years old, right? We talk about games on a daily, texting. Like I text him more than my wife at times, and it's kind of scary, right?
Yeah, my girlfriend calls him my wife. Like, he's like, oh, is your wife texting you right now? And I'm like, shut up.
Same.
Yeah.
So we're like, why don't we just do this in a podcast form? Like, we can just do the same thing that we're doing right now, but just kind of hopefully create a community. That's what we kind of wanted to do, was just create a community that we can talk to other people just like how we're doing right now, and just talk about what we love the most, video games, and just have a great time, right? So that's how we started with our podcast. And it started, I don't know if we want to get into like the hardships and the difficulties, but it's weird for me because I started getting into the podcast form, and then we started talking about YouTube, right? YouTube was kind of like one of those big formats that I was like, I think we should divert a little bit to YouTube because there's a possible, there's a good amount of people there that could see our podcast or
so you started the podcast first before even doing YouTube videos.
Yeah, because we were recording ourselves speaking to each other. right? So we're like, why don't we put it just on YouTube so people can have a visual of us having this conversation versus just hearing our voice. They can like put the face to the voice. So we're kind of like double dipping almost, we'll do it on YouTube. But then obviously Kevin will tell you there are some hardships when it comes to the YouTube side of things versus being a podcast.
YouTube is hard.
Yeah.
YouTube is very hard to at least show yourself out there, right? There's so many avenues to go, and if you're not careful, you just kind of put all your eggs in one basket in a sense, right? Where you're just focused on one thing and you're not really focused on what you started off, which was being a podcast, right? So that was my issue, where I was working on YouTube, and I'm kind of like more on the YouTube side where I kind of like edit our videos and all that stuff. And I was really diving into the YouTube thing. Like, you talk about SEOs, you talk about thumbnails, you talk about your title has to be a certain way. Like, there's so much that goes into YouTube, and I kind of went into the spiral of like, this has to be like our avenue, right? And it kind of gave us a lot of difficult times, right, Rob? Where we had a lot of back and forth. We're like, no, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. Like, it caused a lot of friction for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely a point where we were having almost like an identity crisis where we're like, are we a podcast or are we YouTubers? Because I think primarily what we started was a podcast because our strong suit is the conversations that we have with each other. I don't know if you guys ever check our YouTube channel, but we do like deep dives in a single game. We do like reviews for different like cameras and stuff like that. I did like top 10 best laptops, something like that. So we really did have like kind of an identity crisis when we started diving into YouTube. And then it's like, well, what's the point? I thought we were a podcast versus. So when you do YouTube, it gets lost in translation sometimes because you're like, well, this YouTuber is doing this and they're getting these amount of views. I should be doing that same thing because then you start chasing views, and then what happens when you start chasing the views is you stop enjoying what you're doing and what you set out to do. And that was kind of like what opened our eyes. It's like, dude, like we're losing what we actually like, why we did this. So
it starts to not become fun anymore.
Right.
Because you're just worrying about,
I mean, you start worrying about the views like Rob said, and then one video did great, right? We have over 3,000 views on one video, but then the next video did like 25. And then it just causes this like pain. Like you're just like, oh, what just happened? Like, what are we doing wrong? And it's just
and you're overanalyzing everything. Was it the hashtag that was wrong? Yeah. Was it the title that was wrong? Did I say too many times?
Nothing motivated me more than putting up my first 2 to 3 episodes, and I use Buzzsprout to host, and it says based on our predictor, your next episode will receive 0 downloads. And I'm like, fuck you.
That's terrible.
I screenshotted that, and that shit's in my favorites folder in my iPhone, and I look at it from time to time, and I'm like, look at this. Now it says 17, bitch. Yep. So
moving on up.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to, obviously having such a niche podcast, my views are on the low side. So I've always accepted that 99.99999% of the world does not need to hear my voice. They don't give a shit what I think about Days Gone, or they have even probably heard of Days Gone. So I hear you with that whole like trying to finding yourself focusing too much on how to game the system and how to improve your game. At a certain point, you kind of have to like let that go and just be like, well, my audience is my audience. They will find me. I will welcome them with open arms. Like, yes, anyone who wants to come find me, like, great. I need to do my job to make sure I can reach the people who want to hear my podcast. But I also know, I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as much money in podcasting. You hear about all these YouTubers that make millions. It's like, that's not going to happen in the podcasting world. Certainly not going to happen to me. So yeah, you kind of have to like let it go a little bit and stop chasing it.
Well, I think a big part too is like, think of like Joe Rogan. People see Joe Rogan as like, he's a podcaster. He makes like a ton of money on YouTube. I can do it too. And but he's Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Joe Rogan. He is the man when it comes to podcasting. But what he had on his side was more people knew who he was before.
Yeah.
And I found that the most difficult thing was not recording, which I thought that's what it was going to be. It was not editing or keeping this a secret from my wife for 3 weeks. It was all of a sudden, like, nobody knows who I am. Who am I for people to seek me out? It's that promoting part of it.
Right,
and then you
right.
feel so like, God, you feel like a 17-year-old girl hashtagging the shit out of your post. But
Yeah, I
again,
know,
that's
right?
what you
I do
got to
that.
do.
My least favorite part, honestly, about posting is the
Yeah.
hashtags. I hate
With
it.
the hashtags and the fucking emojis and shit. It's like, you have to, because you have to kind of
That's
seem
how-
like a real person. And but Claire, with your podcast though, you said you don't get that many views, but the views and the reactions that you do get have to be really, really satisfying, because when
Yes.
somebody finds you, they're like, I love that game and I love your podcast. I've always wanted the Halloween costume that was like a very low kind of pop culture reference, where not many people knew what it was, but when they spot it, they're like, oh man, Samuel Jackson from Pulp Fiction, or Jim Halper from The Office, whatever I would do is like, but the people who do know what it is, it really makes you feel good. Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a superhero or something, to be a hit.
Yeah, I mean, I get like what I call fan mail, and I'm using air quotes, when people like email me and say, hey, I'm loving your podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I've had like, I don't know, maybe a dozen emails, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm famous. Oh my God, so many people are listening to my podcast.
Don't
like,
diminish
wait,
it,
no,
Claire.
no.
That is fan
Right.
mail. You've earned
Exactly.
that. You've
Exactly.
earned that.
Yeah, but
And
it's
honestly,
nice. It is
Claire-
nice having people listen and knowing that. I mean, this is from like all around the world. I've got one guy in Pakistan messaging me, someone in Brazil, someone in England, people in Canada. It's like it's all over the place, and it's just so cool that the community is spread that wide, and that I've like somehow added to it. So it's contributing to the community that kind of gives me that buzz. I like it.
Have you seen this? Okay, so it tells you what area of the world that it's being downloaded.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen a specific? Because it'll actually tell me the cities that really excite. So when I did, I think it was Draugen. Now that developer is based on, I think it's Oslo, Norway. And after I uploaded that episode, there were 2 downloads from Oslo. Yeah. When I was like, oh my God, I hope they liked it. Maybe they hated it. I don't know. But when you see that, you get excited, but you also get really scared. Like, Jesus, I hope I didn't fuck anything up. All I did was talk good about it. So
funny story, for the first, I don't know, couple months I was doing the podcast, the first like, it must have been at least 10, maybe 12 episodes, maybe 3 months. I didn't have any downloads from Oregon. And the game is set in Oregon, and the studio that produced the game is in Oregon. And I was like, oh,
wow.
But you see, everyone has had these like difficult times. Like you start off with like 0 followers or 0 listeners,
Right.
and you kind of slowly build that confidence within your community and within the listeners. And again, 12 people that email you, that to me is an achievement. Like that's something that you didn't have those 12 people prior to doing this podcast,
Yeah.
and it gives me like a warm feeling inside, right? When I get a comment on YouTube or someone enjoys our podcast and I see like those numbers grow, like it makes me feel like, all right, I'm doing this for myself, right? But I'm also saying that what we're talking about and what we're discussing about is giving like anything, happiness or joy or anything, discussion of any type to somebody else, and that it's just a really good feeling,
Yeah, I think so too. With you're getting fans essentially, right? Where it feels good when someone out there is, when you put out that podcast, they're tuning in every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an amazing feeling. It's just, that's the closest I think I've come to like being like a musician, a famous musician, where like everyone's singing your song and you're just like, I can't imagine how that feels. And this is, I think, the closest thing to that. And it's a great feeling.
I have a question for you guys. So I don't know how many followers you have, but you obviously have had that moment where it's like, oh wait, people are actually listening to what we're doing. People actually care and give a shit about what we say. Did that come with a moment of fear where you're like, oh my God, people are actually listening to me? Oh God, people actually want to know what I have to say. Did it overwhelm you at any point?
Because now you're like fuck, I definitely have to do more now.
Yes, yeah. The pressure is like people are actually listening to what you're saying, so make it good.
Yeah.
I think for us, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think what we have, our content is great. I think what we talk about is good in a sense because we have that conversation where we're both bantering back and forth, right? So I'm not worried about people listening to us. I'm just worried more so of like what I'm saying, and if I'm messing up again, having that same issue of like if I'm saying too much, or if I'm saying like those things are really a big issue for me. So I'm okay with working on that every single day, and I'm just glad that everyone's listening to us and actually enjoying what we have to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like before starting this, where I'm like you said, Daniel, who wants to listen to two guys banter about video games? Like, especially like us, right? But you start getting a following, and you're like, wow, people actually enjoy what we have to say, and you kind of just roll with it, you know?
Yeah, and I think, and we can move on. This will be a good segue to the next question I have. I think because me and Kelvin do have each other in the sense of it's a dual podcast to co-host, you could kind of lean that person, right? Like say you're not feeling so high, you'd be like, well, what do you think of this? And then you can kind of like pass the baton to that person and then they take over. So the pressure isn't as much for us as it would be for you guys, because you guys usually have it's just you. So it's going to be completely different, which I'll ask Claire first. It being just a single podcast, and I know you have guests multiple times, but for the most part, it's just you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've started having guests on pretty much every episode, but I do a lot of work on the structure of like the questions and the things that we're going to talk about, especially when I do like a deep dive into a character, so it's like deconstructing all of the character motivations and talking about all of the backstory and all of the little clues sprinkled throughout the game. I have to go through and I have to find all that stuff because I can't rely on my guests to do that because it's not fair. It's my podcast.
Right.
I should do the work. I feel like I've started answering before you got to ask the actual question. What was the actual question going to be?
That was like the actual question as far as the pressure. Like, do you guys feel certain pressure when it's just you? As far as me and Kelvin, like we have each other to kind of fall on it and collaborate. Where when you're recording, how many times are you guys going like, oh, damn it, let me start it again. I messed it up.
Oh, yeah.
Is it a lot? Is it a lot of times you guys are doing that?
I mean,
a lot.
Maybe more, but Daniel, I do it maybe like once or twice an episode. I'll start saying a sentence, I'll mess up halfway through. I'll just stop and like go back and re-say like what I was going to say. But yeah, usually when I get to the edit, there's always something where I've said it and I haven't left enough space to like edit around it or to snip it out. And I'm like,
right.
Only I just slowed down, taken a breath, gone back and just said it again a little better, then I'd be in a good spot. How about you, Daniel?
Oh my God. Yeah. Once or twice? I've taken 15 minutes one time for the fucking intro, which is just 60
yours is
seconds
off a
worth of talk.
script, right? You have a script.
Yes. That's me tripping over my own verbal and written words that I have. Sometimes I got to do it over and over again. I think I did post something on Instagram too where I screwed something up.
Yeah, I saw that.
I said like, and like it's written right there. Like I don't know why I said that, or I'll add in something else and it's like, and sometimes I'll mess up. Like, did I forget how to read or something? I mean,
I think that's what it is. It's that pressure that you put on yourself that you're messing it up. Because I remember when we would do YouTube videos and I had to like read a script or something like that, I would mess it up like 4 or 5 times in a row. Just like, wait, the words are right there. Like I'm just staring at myself in the camera. But I think because you know that it's just you and there's nobody else, it makes it that much harder. It's that pressure and it's hard, and I applaud you to be able to do that, guys, because it's not easy.
Yeah, especially like Daniel too, because you're basically by yourself. Like you don't have any special guests at the moment, right? So listening to you, listening to your podcast,
everybody listening, we're all looking at each other on webcam here. So I'm just like pointing like there's nobody here in my basement. It's
behind Daniel is just an empty room.
Yeah.
Well, you had
sports car in the back.
A leg up on mine because my first 6 episodes with no guests, I did very little preparation. I would just start the mic and just start talking. I'm just like, when people find the podcast now and they're like, oh, should I listen from episode 1? I'm like, no, please don't listen to those
No.
early few episodes, because it
Please
gets
don't
way
do it.
better. When I actually
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
to prepare, I figured I could ad-lib it and just like, bluff it, go, whatever would come out of my mouth would just come out of my mouth. And I was like, at a certain point, realized that's not how I should be doing it. I should put a little more effort into this. But I think in terms of reading a script, one thing that helps me is I've learned this from doing pitches for movies and TV shows, which is what I do for a living. I will write as I speak. So I don't write formally. If I know I'm going to read it out loud, I won't write I want to, it's I wanna. Because I know when I'm reading it, I'm going to say, I want to say
sure.
this. I want to do this.
Mhm.
Like, you've got to write it how you actually genuinely speak. And then it becomes a lot easier. And I do a lot of like hand motions and stuff, which I'm doing right now. You guys can see me on the camera.
Oh, I'm a hand guy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you got to do that, because then that makes you feel like you're actually speaking to real people and not just reading text on the page. That's my pro tip.
Kelvin, is that why your camera's up? Because you're like wicking.
Oh, yeah, you can't see my hands.
We can't see the hands. Yeah. Okay.
But so I guess that's a good segue too for how do we set up our podcast? So like what comes with the preparation of starting that episode, like every week. Daniel, if you want to start.
There's a lot of writing that goes into it. So the difficulty I have, and really the reason I started podcasting, I mean, this is my third time. I had done it a couple of times with a guy that used to be a friend of mine years ago. And as you guys said, we would sit around just talking about this stuff, and there's an audience for everything and everybody. So we just thought, like, why don't we just record it and see if there's an audience for that? So I kind of got into it the way you guys did with a friend. But I also, it's kind of a form of acting ish, because you have to write something out. You have to kind of memorize it, or at least read off it in a very well articulate way. And I've never been a very well-spoken person. And I got to think about what I say way ahead of time, because there'll be a lot of pauses. If you and I met for the first, admittedly, I'm socially awkward. Like if I met somebody for the first time, especially like a girl,
Same.
I would think about what I'm saying, like, and they're like, are you asleep? Like you stopped in the middle of your sentence. And
Are you having a seizure? Like,
yes,
what's
exactly. Like, I'm just kind of staring like, what am I going to say next? So I found it as a way to also, it's almost like performing, but I also have the luxury of not having people see me, which I hate. So they just hear my horrible, annoying voice, but
Which it is not, by the way. It is not horrible and annoying.
Yeah. No.
I really appreciate you saying that, but you've only been talking to me for about a month now, so
I'm not sick of you yet.
Oh yeah. So I read when I was I think I was a teenager. I read it was like an interview with Bruce Willis, and he said that because I used to stutter really bad when I was a kid, and Bruce Willis said that he had gotten into acting to control his stutter, or one of the reasons he got into acting to help control that stutter. And whether it's bullshit or not, or I'm remembering it wrong, I think I'm remembering it right. So I thought that might be a good way for me to help myself speak better. So I do have to have my episodes written out. So in the beginning of the week, weekends are brainstorming on what I'm going to do next. So for example, last weekend, I thought, boom, Tomb Raider. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is usually writing for me. And I used to have just bullet points, but I still need a structure to kind of segue from one bullet point to another. So I ended up writing out almost the entire episode, word for word, but I don't want to sound like I'm reading it, really. I want to talk like I'm speaking it, which is why it takes me a bunch of takes. Sometimes I think like that take is like, I really sounded like I just read off of something. Let me do that again. So the first, Wednesday, I like to have it done by Wednesday because Thursday night I record, but any changes I'll do on Thursday. Thursday night, that's when I record. It takes 2 or 3 hours for the recording, any editing I got to do in the writing, and then editing the episodes. So I record a paragraph kind of at a time, or a small portion of the topic at a time. So that way, if I got to go back and do it, I don't have to correct that part. And then there's the merging of everything together and getting rid of that dead space in between. So that's really what that is. I try to have the editing done by Thursday night and then have it up by either Thursday night or Friday. But that's just what I can do now. But I do work full time. I have a Monday through Friday job, 8 to 5. My evenings when I come home, I spend time with my son. I only have about an hour and a half with him before he goes to bed. So then by the time I put him to bed, I'm tired and, it's tough. But if I stick to a schedule, I hold myself accountable and I know that I have to kind of fit everything else within that schedule. So I kind of get myself organized that way. Ish.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same boat where we obviously have the video portion to our podcast, right? But we don't have any scripts, right? We have just a document that we kind of post all of our news that we're going to be talking about on Wednesday, and then Thursday we record. So we're a little bit kind of more loose on what we talk about, and again, it's kind of just more like whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to talk about? So me and him will get into a call Wednesday night. We'll share the doc just like how we're doing for this, and we'll put in, all right, do you want to talk about this? You want to talk about this? And we'll talk about this. All right, cool. What's the discussion for PTG Talks going to be? What do you want to discuss? And then we decide on a topic. And that's honestly, as I don't want to say but that's pretty much it, right, Kelv? Like we don't really go into super in depth with
No, we don't go too much in depth. I think again, like what we're really strong with is just like our discussion pieces that we would just kind of talk like how we were if we were right side by side with each other and just talking about something, I think that's like our strong suit. So the Wednesday is just kind of writing down what we think is going to be good for the podcast on Thursday, and then Thursday's recording. And on top of recording, once we're done, I start editing the video of what we did and then just kind of, edit the audio and try to just kind of sync both of the audio and the video together, because Rob kind of focuses more on the audio side as far as like cleaning it up and making it sound pretty. And then once we do that, Rob is also for the most part doing the thumbnails, and we just kind of put everything together so that by Friday we have the episode out by 7 a.m. and then the video sometime like around 4 p.m., 5 o'clock.
So you guys basically, you do what we just did for this episode. You just write down little topic points and you just kind of go with it.
We just go with it. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's awesome, because when you record your video too, I mean, there's really no editing out snippets of that like you can in audio, like clearing of the throat or ums and stuff like that. You guys have to do the whole thing in one shot.
Yeah. Which is hard. There's times where I'm just like, I'm messing up so many times. You want to tell them about yesterday?
Oh my goodness. So yesterday we're on, I was hosting, and we're about like, I want to say 35 minutes in. We went through all of the news pieces for the day, and Kelvin goes, I'm not recording. And I was like, what do you mean you're not recording, man? And I wasn't even, I was just bewildered. I wasn't even mad. I was just like,
Rob, stop talking. Hang on. I'm not recording.
How long were you? Well, how long was Rob recording for?
35 minutes.
Shit.
So,
all right.
And he's like, what are we going to do? Like, this is just,
I gave up. I was like,
yeah,
we're done. Like, we're not posting this episode. Like, it's over. Like, we just messed up. Like, we ruined our freaking streak,
And I see like the panic and like the disappointment in his face. And I'm just like, oh no, what are we going to do? So I'm like, Kelv, go behind in your fridge and just pour yourself a shot. You need a shot. We're going to get through this. All right. It's going to be okay. Yep. So I indulged too. I took one. I was like, we're going to run it back again. And we did the whole thing. We did like an hour and a half of recording, but we did the whole thing again, the whole exact news piece, trying to like replicate the conversation we just had. And then it worked. We did it.
And that's hard, right? Because you literally just had that conversation, and now you're trying to, in a sense, just fake it, sort of, right? Like you're
faking it because you rehearsed it before.
Right.
Right.
That's happened to me twice on the 2 previous podcasts that I've done. Both times there's been an episode where we recorded the entire episode only to find out it didn't record. Something messed up with Audacity or whatever software we're using, and it's like it's just not there. It's just gone.
And
everything
that's
for like an hour long episode of just talking about whatever and all these like wonderful thoughts and opinions that I came up with, just lost gone.
Right.
And now you got to, like you say, you got to kind of redo it and pretend like this is the first time you've come up with this
Exactly.
opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was super frustrating, and I'm glad. Actually, in my opinion, it turned out better than the first time, which is kind of funny. But
because we could like fine tune what parts we
Right.
didn't like about that conversation, so we steered clear of like saying something that we said before, and like, oh, let's actually, this worked out better. So
Right.
like he said, I think it came out better than the first time.
But even talking to you guys, like I'm learning as I go, like I said, and even from your experiences, like I feel like I'm gaining knowledge from you guys just based off of like how you guys structure your podcast, and I'm like, oh, those are great ideas, and those are things that we can kind of think about for our podcast, incorporate stuff like that, and just kind of build our podcast to become like much better.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I wanted to have this conversation, just so people can see what it's like, and other people who want to start a podcast or are currently doing a podcast, and just see, what we got going on.
Just start it. That's really all
Just
you
do
have
it.
to do. I mean, I'm more so of like an introvert. Like I'm very quiet. I'm very like kind of like to myself. So for me to do this, I'm really getting out of my shell here.
Same.
And it's hard for me to just be just on this video right now. Like it's hard, but you do it and you grow from it and you get better. You get better each time.
Hell yeah.
I think for Kelvin too, when we first were doing the podcast, it was hard for him to put it on like promote it from his social media, his personal account, saying I'm doing this thing. And I was like, why don't you just promote it on your social, tell your friends that you're doing a podcast. And it is hard. It is 100% hard. Like you said, Daniel, earlier today, with your wife, to tell her that you were doing a podcast, it takes a lot to come out, because it's your true self basically coming out. You're showing the world like, this is me, and I'm afraid what they'll think. But then eventually you're just like, you know what? I don't care. This is me.
That's exactly what happened to me. Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Because she was, at first she was kind of like, well, you really thought I was gonna not support you? She's like, no, it has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with me and my insecurities. I've always been a very shy, under the radar kid. I'm the kid that sits in the back of the class, because I don't like the attention on me. So me doing this is crazy. But again, I don't have my face on it. Nobody can see my face. So you guys are really stepping on your shell, or Kelvin, at least for you said, because you're also doing the video portion of it too.
Isn't it weird how we're all introvert? Well, Rob, you haven't said about whether you're an introvert or an extrovert.
I've
no, he's good. He's good.
No, but I've regressed, not regressed in a sense, but I've changed into an introvert. Since I've been working remotely for the past 2.5 years. I used to be in office and whatnot. And, you used to talk to all your people in the office. That has kind of made me into an introvert now, where I don't really want to talk to people anymore. Like, especially if I'm out anywhere, I'm like kind of like to himself, and I'm like, I get almost like anxiety because I'm kind of like far away from it.
Yeah, you get self-conscious. I mean, I'm the same. I'm socially kind of awkward, and
but I love that you guys don't show it. You guys don't show it, at least like from what I see.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I've learned to do. It's the kind of like fake it till you make it. It's not like I'm putting on a front or anything. Like if anyone
it's just to
asks,
better yourself.
Yeah, if anyone asks like, are you an introvert? I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm fucking super awkward and can't speak properly, and like don't come up and talk to me at a party because I won't know what to say. But I force myself to do it because of the challenge, because I learn about myself and I learn how to be better. And it's really helped with my work, and my work has really helped with the podcast. Like it's sort of this kind of feedback loop where every part of what I do energizes every other part of what I do.
You learn a lot about yourself when you sit down just alone, talking, recording,
100%.
and then you listen to yourself back, and you're finally, you're hearing what other people hear, and
it's so hard to begin with. It's hard because you're like, oh my god, this is how I've sounded my whole life. Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed.
I'm so sorry.
But everyone has that. Like we were saying, Morgan Freeman probably hates the sound of his own voice. Like it is a common thing, and I think if anyone is listening to this and they want to start a podcast, we didn't really talk about the equipment that's needed, but you really don't need a lot. There's a lot of free equipment you can use. You can put things up for free on YouTube, even just audio files. That's what I do. All my episodes are just audio, but they are all on YouTube. You really don't need a lot of technical expertise. all you need is some way of recording your voice, a microphone, or even just a laptop, and the will to do it. And it's so exhilarating. Like, I love doing it. I'm just a small niche podcast. You know, my opinions don't matter to the world at large, but like, I fucking love it. And I love connecting with other people. And that's really what it's brought for me, is the connection with other people, making friends, meeting new people. It's, you know, I've said this before, like, this video game and doing this podcast has literally changed my life. And I'm kind of thankful that I stepped out my comfort zone.
Me too.
And you can't imagine not doing it, right? At this point.
Oh God, no! I'm going to be doing this forever. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about like 10 years from now, but there'll still be
Days Gone 2.
podcast.
Days Gone 2.
Days Gone 2.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully by then there's another game to go on, and then you can talk about comparing the two and all this stuff.
Right,
so it'll just keep
right.
going on and on.
Ooh, that's it. Content for days there.
Okay, so that's where we will end part 1 of 3. As you can tell, we were having a lot of fun talking. We hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, we certainly do, because you're getting 2 more whether you like it or not. So they will be released over the next 2 Sundays on our own individual shows. So follow any one of us. Of course, I'm Video Games and Coffee. Please follow Claire Weaver. She's at Days Gone Pod on Instagram. Kelvin and Rob are at Project Tech Gaming on Instagram. You can also find them on YouTube and all, of course, the major podcast platforms. So thank you very much for listening. It was a long episode. Hell, if we would have released everything all at once, it would have been even longer. So we're giving you a break right now. But thank you again. Have fun. Stay safe. Be good to each other. And I'll talk to you next time.